This is a Unit 5 preview video. So this video we're going to cover graphing lines in slope-intercept form and writing the equation of a line in slope-intercept form from a table and a graph. So you notice our equations have been in the form of y equals mx plus b for quite some time. We call this slope-intercept form because it contains both our slope and our y-intercept. The letter M represents our slope, and the letter B represents our y-intercept. So let's do a little bit of investigating and see how does M affect the graph of y equals mx plus b. So the choices that we have to fill in our statements are when M is positive, the graph of the line. So if I look over here with my graph and scale, as my slope is positive, notice that my line is increasing from left to right. So another way to say increasing is that our line rises. If M is negative, so if we're below 0 for a slope, we know that our line is falling. When M is larger than 1, so if you notice your dotted line is the y equals x. So if I have a slope bigger than 1, say I have 1.5 or 2 or even 3, notice that your line is steeper than the graph of y equals x. When x is between 0 and 1, so if it's a decimal or a fraction between 0 and 1, notice that our line is rising slower, so it is less steep than the graph of y equals x. So let's look at when m is negative 5. So we don't have a negative 5 on here, so we'll just go to our biggest number. Notice that that graph is going to be steeper than something where it's negative 2, where the line flattens out a little bit more. So if your m is a larger number, it's going to be a steeper line. If my m is smaller than the graph, it's going to be a less steep line. If I look at the graph where it's y equals 3x, my slope is negative 3. If I change my slope to negative 1, notice that I have a less steep line. So let's look at some questions that we can answer using slope and comparing them. So we have 4 different equations. We have y equals 1/7 x minus 3. We have y equals 5x plus 7. Y equals negative 8 minus 2. And y equals negative 3/4 x plus 1. Which line is the steepest? So when we're trying to figure out which one is steeper or less steep, we're just going to look at our slopes, which are the number or the coefficient in front of x. We're not going to worry about which one is negative or positive when we're talking about steepest. We're just looking for the biggest number. So in this case, the biggest number would be 8. So the equation C would be the steepest. Which one is the flattest? So now we want the smallest number. Again, we're not paying attention to negative and positive. So my smallest number here is 1/7. So this would be the flattest line. Now when it says which ones have positive slopes, we need numbers that are positive in front of x, which would be a and b. When we have negative slopes, we want a negative number in front of x, c and d. So write the equation in slope-intercept form. This is something we've already been doing. Remember that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So my slope, or my rate of change, is going to go in for m. So in number 5, it says we have a slope of 3. We're going to substitute that in for m. Our b is the y-intercept, or the starting point. So we're going to put -3 in for b. So our equation then would be y equals, we always need a y equals in order for it to be an equation, 3x minus 3. In number 6, we have a rate of change of 5/7 and a y-intercept of 0. So we're going to still put in 5/7 for my slope and 0 for my y-intercept. So my equation becomes y equals 5/7 x plus 0. Because there's a 0 here, we don't really need to write that. So our final equation would be y equals 5/7 x. So let's look at a table to write our equation in slope-intercept form. So in number 7, use the table to find the slope and y-intercept. Use this information to write a function rule. So if I look at two numbers, I'm going to pick two numbers. I'm going to pick the first two in my table. My y's to change from 7 to 12 is by 5, and from -3 to 0 is 3. So my slope is change in y over change in x, which would be 5/3. My y-intercept is when I have 0 for x and then a number for y. So my starting point or y-intercept is 0, 12. So if I want to write my equation of the line, then I would have my equation is y equals, my slope is 5/3 x plus my y-intercept, because my y-intercept was positive in this case. Let's look at another example with a graph. So in number 8, we're given a graph where we have to find the slope and y-intercept in order to write the equation of the line. So when I look at my graph, my line is falling from left to right, which means I'm going to have a negative slope. So I want to figure out how much did I go down. So I went down 1, 2, 3, minus 3, and over 1. So my slope is -3 over 1, which reduces to -3. My y-intercept is where I'm intersecting the y-axis. So I'm intersecting at this point, which is 0, 2. So my equation would be y equals my slope -3x plus 2. So let's look at if I'm given an equation making the graph without the use of a table. So put the equation in function form, determine the slope and y-intercept, then graph. When I look at number 9, it's already in function form because it's a y equals equation. So I'm just going to look at my slope. My slope is the number in front of the x, so it's 3. My y-intercept is the number by itself, 0, -5. So when I start graphing, I start at my y-axis. So I'm going to go to 0, -5, place a dot. Now, my slope of 3 can be written as 3 over 1. So remember, when we find slope, it's the change in y over the change in x. So in this case, that means I would move up 3 and right 1. So from my y-intercept, I'm going to make two dots. I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, to the right 1, put a dot. I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, over 1, place a dot. Once I have 3 dots, I can connect these to make my graphed line. Same thing in number 10. My slope is the number in front of x, so my slope is -2/3. My y-intercept is the number that's by itself, so 0, 6. So when I start my graph, I'm going to start at 0, 6. My slope is -2/3. So the number on top is my change in y, which means I'm going to go down 2 units. I'm going to go to the right 3 units. So down 2, 1, 2, over 3, 1, 2, 3, place a dot. From that point, I'm going to do the same thing again. Down 2, right 3, and then I can connect my line, so I have my graph.